My name is Olivia Harper, and at 34, I never imagined I'd become the unexpected linchpin of my father's extravagant wedding in Monterey, California. For years, Charles Bennett introduced me as just a security officer, his words laced with a disappointment that cut deeper than I'd ever admit to him. He'd envisioned a different path for me: Stanford Law, a corner office, a legacy that mirrored his own as a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. But on that sun-drenched afternoon, my career, so often dismissed as beneath his standards, became the shield that protected his guests, his new wife, and perhaps even his life. The moment my name flashed across a news broadcast, his carefully curated world tilted, and our fractured relationship began to find new ground. If you're watching this, I'd love to hear where you're from. Drop it in the comments below. Hit like, subscribe, and join me for more stories about family bonds reshaped by moments of courage that no one saw coming. Charles Bennett was a colossus in the world of venture capital, a man whose signature could turn a fledgling startup into a billion-dollar empire or consign it to obscurity. His life was a monument to ambition, measured in seven-figure deals, private jet itineraries, and a sprawling estate in Los Altos Hills where every detail screamed wealth. Our family vacations were spectacles of opulence, sailing the Amalfi Coast, skiing in Courchevel, each moment meticulously staged for his social media feed and boardroom anecdotes. Family portraits sat polished on his desk, but beneath the glossy surface, our connection was a tightrope stretched over a chasm of unmet expectations. To Charles, success was a narrow road: elite education, corporate law, a name that echoed his own in the corridors of power. I was meant to be his protege, not my own person. My parents' marriage unraveled when I was 12. My mother, Grace Harper, was a poet and part-time librarian who found joy in quiet moments, reading Rilke by candlelight, tending her backyard herb garden, teaching community college students to love literature. She couldn't keep pace with Charles's relentless pursuit of status, and their values diverged like fault lines splitting a continent. After the divorce, I split my time between Mom's cozy Oakland bungalow, filled with mismatched furniture and the scent of lavender, and Dad's sleek San Francisco penthouse, all glass and steel with a panoramic view of the Bay Bridge. Weekends with him became a masterclass in tension. He had my future scripted: Stanford Law School, a partnership at a firm he admired. At 18, over a strained dinner of grilled halibut and Sauvignon Blanc, I told him I was joining the Navy. His fork froze midair. "Olivia, people of our caliber don't enlist," he said, his voice sharp with disbelief. "They lead, not follow orders." I signed the papers the next day. The Navy was my proving ground. 7 years, including 2 deployments in the Middle East, forged me into someone who could read threats in a glance, lead under pressure, and stay calm when chaos erupted. I served as a security specialist, training in counterterrorism and close-quarters combat, learning to spot anomalies in crowds and diffuse crises before they escalated. One memory stands out: a night in Bahrain. Disarming a hostel during a diplomatic escort, my heart steady despite the adrenaline. Those years taught me resilience, purpose, and a calling to protect. After an honorable discharge, I used my GI Bill to earn a degree in security management, working nights as a private guard to pay the bills. I started at small venues, concert halls, corporate retreats, before landing at Apex Guardians, a premier security firm trusted by tech titans, foreign dignitaries, and global summits. By 34, I was a senior operative, leading protection details for CEOs and coordinating security for events like the UN Climate Conference in San Francisco. I'd earned industry awards for my threat assessment skills, my team respected my precision, and clients trusted my judgment. But to Dad, my tactical vest and badge were a letdown, a far cry from the tailored suits and boardroom deals he valued. In his eyes, I was a disappointment, a daughter who'd chosen a lesser path. When his wedding invitation arrived, embossed on heavy cream cardstock, I nearly tossed it into the trash. Charles Bennett and Isabella Monroe request the honor of presence. Isabella, his third fiancée, was a tech heiress whose AI startup had gone public, her face a staple in Wired and Vogue. Their engagement had been a headline in the San Francisco Chronicle's society pages, complete with photos from a charity gala where they'd met. I showed the invite to my best friend, Ethan Cole, over beers at our favorite Oakland dive, a dimly lit bar with sticky tables and the best tacos in the East Bay. "You've got to go, Liv," he said, wiping hot sauce from his chin. Show up as the badass you are. Don't let him shrink you. I swirled my IPA, unconvinced. He'll just parade me as his wayward daughter who chose security over aerial career. Ethan leaned forward, eyes serious. Then dazzle them. Walk in there with your head high, let them see who you really are. You're not just a security guard, you're a protector. His words stuck with me, and I agreed, if only to prove I could face Charles's judgment without flinching. Shopping with Ethan was a marathon. We scoured boutiques across Oakland and San Francisco, debating dresses like generals planning a campaign. We settled on a deep emerald gown, elegant but not ostentatious, with clean lines that felt like armor. I paired it with minimalist silver earrings, a nod to my practical side. The night before the wedding, I called Mom for a pep talk, pacing my small Oakland apartment. Liv, his inability to see your strength is his flaw, not yours, she said, her voice a warm anchor over the phone. You've built a life of purpose, protecting people, making a difference. Hold that close, no matter what he says. Her words steadied me as I packed my suitcase for the wedding at the Marisol Crest, a sprawling coastal estate in Monterey. Deep down, a flicker of hope stirred. Maybe, just maybe, Charles would see me for who I'd become, not the daughter he'd written off. What I couldn't have known was how that weekend would rewrite our story in ways I never imagined. The Marisol Crest was a vision of coastal opulence, acres of manicured gardens, cliffs dropping to the Pacific, and a grand pavilion draped in white roses and twinkling chandeliers. As my rental car wound through the iron gates, I spotted white marquees shimmering in the distance, floral arches catching the golden afternoon sun. The lobby buzzed with Charles's elite circle, venture capitalists in bespoke linen blazers, tech influencers in designer sundresses, their conversations a hum of IPOs, real estate ventures, and yacht club memberships. My emerald gown felt like a shield, but I was still an outsider in their polished world. Olivia, Dad's voice cut through the chatter as he strode over with Isabella, both radiating red carpet poise. His hug was perfunctory, his smile tight, as if my presence was an obligation he hadn't quite planned for. You made it, he said, his tone suggesting surprise. Isabella's greeting was polished but fleeting. So thrilled you're here, Olivia. The welcome dinner's at 7. Make yourself at home. They swept off to greet more prominent guests. A senator, a tech mogul, a fashion editor, leaving me with my carry-on and a familiar ache of being an afterthought. A bellhop whisked my bag to my room, and I wandered the estate, killing time before the evening's events. The grounds were breathtaking. Cypress trees framing ocean views, pathways lined with lavender, and a fountain that seemed to whisper wealth. I found a quiet bench overlooking the cliffs, sketching in my notebook to calm my nerves, a habit I'd picked up from Mom. The welcome dinner unfolded in a glass-walled dining hall, its ceiling strung with fairy lights and its tables draped in ivory linen, groaning under the weight of orchid centerpieces and crystal candelabras. My place card relegated me to a corner table, far from Dad and Isabella's inner circle, where Charles held court with stories of his latest deal. Over glasses of chilled Chardonnay, he introduced me to a venture capitalist with a silver beard and a Rolex the size of a small clock. This is Olivia, my daughter. She works in security, he said, the word security landing like a downgrade, as if I patrolled mall parking lots for a living. The man nodded politely, his eyes already scanning for someone more interesting. Unique career, he said. Military background? Navy, 7 years, I replied, keeping my tone even. He mumbled, "Thank you for your service," before Dad steered him toward Isabella's cousin, a crypto entrepreneur fresh off a Forbes cover. The pattern repeated all evening. Each introduction stripped my career to a single dismissive word: security. By the time dessert, a lavender-infused panna cotta, was served, I'd been reduced to the security guard at least 15 times, each one chipping away at my resolve to stay through the weekend. I escaped to the restroom, splashing cold water on my face and texting Ethan. He's calling me a security guard to everyone. I'm done. His reply was instant. You're a protector, Liv. His words don't change who you are. Stay strong. I stared at my reflection, my emerald dress vibrant against the sterile marble sink. I'd faced worse than my father's judgment. Hostile crowds in Baghdad, armed threats at tech summits, high-stakes ops where one wrong move meant disaster. Why did his dismissal hurt so much? I returned to my seat next to a sound technician, the only other worker at the table. He was young, with a scruffy beard and a quick smile. Tough crowd, he muttered, nodding toward Dad's table, where Charles was regaling guests with a story about a yacht purchase. You have no idea, I said, managing a wry smile. He chuckled. Overheard one of your intros. For what it's worth, security sounds way cooler than what these suits do. I'd rather have you watching my back than another hedge fund bro. His kindness caught me off guard, and I felt a lump in my throat. Thanks, I said softly. I needed that. By the end of the night, I was mentally packing my bags, debating whether to skip the ceremony altogether. But something, stubborn pride maybe, or a flicker of hope that tomorrow might be different, kept me there. The wedding day dawned golden, the Pacific sparkling under a cloudless sky. The ceremony was set for 5 p.m., with a cocktail hour and reception to follow at the pavilion. I spent the morning hiking the estate's cliffside trails, the ocean breeze clearing my head. I stopped at a lookout point, sketching the horizon in my notebook, a habit that grounded me when the world felt unsteady. By 4:30, guests gathered under a floral arch woven with roses, eucalyptus, and delicate fairy lights, the ocean's rhythm a soft backdrop. I slipped into a back row chair, exchanging polite nods with strangers who didn't know my name. Better that way, I thought, than another humiliating introduction. But my Navy training kicked in, and I scanned the crowd out of habit, my eyes catching on subtle anomalies. A server near the gift table lingered too long, his tray untouched, his gaze sweeping the crowd with a predator's focus. Another, stationed by the bar, adjusted his jacket in a way that suggested a concealed weapon, a telltale bulge I'd been trained to spot. A third hovered near a service exit, his posture too rigid for a caterer, his eyes darting in a pattern I recognized from my counterterrorism drills. My pulse quickened. This wasn't paranoia, it was instinct, honed over years of assessing threats in high-stakes environments. I edged closer to the service exit, pretending to check my phone, my fingers brushing the hem of my dress to stay grounded. The trio exchanged glances, their movements coordinated, their body language screaming intent. I overheard fragments of their conversation as I passed. During the champagne toast, jewelry worth $3 million, back gate entry, bomb as a backup. My blood ran cold. A robbery was bad enough, but a bomb? This was a coordinated heist with a deadly contingency. I stepped into a shadowed alcove near the pavilion's edge, my heart pounding as I dialed 911. This is Olivia Harper, Apex Guardians operative, I whispered, keeping my voice low. Suspected robbery at Marisol Crest, Monterey. Multiple armed perpetrators, possible explosive device, targeting the wedding reception. The dispatcher's voice was calm but urgent. Officers are en route. ETA 20 minutes. Can you provide descriptions? I rattled off what I'd seen. Male, late 30s, dark jacket, earpiece near the gift table. Another stocky gray vest by the bar. Third, tall black shirt, service exit. Mentioned a bomb. Check the back gate. She promised a bomb squad and hung up. 20 minutes was an eternity in a situation like this. I needed to act now. I found the estate's security office, a cramped room tucked behind the management suite, its walls lined with flickering monitors. Flashing my Apex ID, I briefed the head of security, a former sheriff named Paul Delgado. I've got a credible threat. Coordinated robbery, at least 6 suspects, possibly armed with a potential explosive device. They're targeting the reception, likely during the champagne toast. Paul's eyes narrowed, but he nodded, grabbing his radio. You carrying? He asked, his voice gruff. No, I'm a guest, I replied. He checked a clipboard. We've got 4 guards on the gift table, 2 on the main entrances, 1 on roving patrol. I'll reposition for the back gate and alert my team. I gave him detailed descriptions of the suspects, emphasizing the bomb threat. They mentioned a backup plan, check service areas and delivery zones. Paul nodded, his expression grim. I'll call in extra hands, but we're stretched thin. Stay sharp. Back at the ceremony, the string quartet swelled as Isabella glided down the aisle, her gown shimmering like sea glass in the golden light. Dad stood at the altar, his face softened with a joy I'd rarely seen, a rare glimpse of the man beneath the polished exterior. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness for our fractured bond, but I pushed it aside, my focus locked on the threat. The suspects had spread out, their earpieces glinting subtly in the fading light. I texted Paul their positions. Suspect 1, gift table, dark jacket. Suspect 2, bar, gray vest, possible firearm. Suspect 3, service exit, black shirt. As the officiant pronounced Charles and Isabella married, the pavilion lights flickered, a deliberate disruption just as I'd feared. A man by the bar drew a pistol, his voice cutting through the applause. "Nobody move," he shouted, firing a warning shot into the ceiling. Screams erupted as guests dove for cover, chairs toppling, glasses shattering. "This is a robbery! Valuables, wallets, watches, jewelry, now!" 7 armed men fanned out, barking orders with military precision. One snatched Isabella's sapphire necklace, yanking it from her neck as she gasped. Another loomed over the gift table, demanding a safe code. My mind raced. At least 60 guests, 7 robbers, 3 with visible guns, others likely armed, and a possible bomb in play. Police were still minutes away, and Paul's team was outnumbered. From behind a toppled table, I assessed the scene, my Navy training kicking into overdrive. An elderly woman near me was hyperventilating, her son pleading as a gunman approached, his pistol raised. "Quiet her down," he snapped, his voice harsh. I stood, hands visible, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. "I'm a medic," I lied, drawing on my training to sound authoritative. "She's in distress. Let me help or you'll have a death on your hands, and that's murder charges, not just robbery." The gunman, a wiry man with a scar across his cheek, hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "Make it fast," he growled, waving his gun toward the woman. I knelt beside her, coaching her breathing. "Inhale slowly. Exhale through your nose. You're doing great." My eyes tracked the robbers in my peripheral vision. One rifling through the guests' purses, another demanding Dad's Rolex. Charles complied, his hands trembling as he unclasped it, his face pale. Isabella clung to his arm, tears streaking her makeup. Through a window, I glimpsed police cars creeping closer, their lights off to avoid detection. The lead robber, Scarface, was now at the gift table, shouting for a safe code, his gun trained on a terrified staff member. I caught Paul's eye across the room, signaling readiness with a subtle nod. As guests surrendered jewelry, diamond earrings, gold cufflinks, emerald bracelets, I moved closer to the nearest gunman, who was distracted by a guest's Rolex. The lights flickered again, a second disruption, likely tied to their bomb plan. I seized the moment, lunging at the gunman with a Navy-trained maneuver, twisting his wrist and disarming him in one fluid motion. His pistol hit the floor as I pinned him down, my knee pressing into his back. A second robber fired, the bullet grazing my forearm, sending a searing pain through me. Blood soaked my sleeve, but I held my captive as a shield, shouting to Paul, "Now." His team surged forward, batons drawn as police breached the pavilion doors, weapons raised. "Drop your weapons," an officer shouted. The robbers hesitated, caught between my hold and the arriving officers. I spotted an 8th suspect grabbing a server, a young woman in a catering uniform, as a hostage, bolting for the kitchen. Handing my captive to a cop, I pursued, ignoring the pain in my arm and the blood dripping onto the floor. The kitchen was a maze of stainless steel counters and clattering pans, the staff frozen in panic. I tracked the suspect to a loading dock, where he held the server in a chokehold, his gun pressed to her temple. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. I raised my hands, keeping my voice calm but firm. "It's over. Police have the estate surrounded. Drop the weapon and you walk away with robbery charges, not murder." His eyes flickered with doubt, his grip loosening slightly. "No way out," I continued, edging closer, my training guiding every step. "Let her go, and you might see daylight again." He hesitated, his gun wavering, and I struck, deflecting his weapon arm with a precise strike to his wrist, freeing the hostage as the pistol clattered to the concrete. I pinned him in a restraint hold, my arm throbbing as police swarmed in, cuffing him and checking the server, who was shaking but unharmed. Back in the pavilion, paramedics treated shaken guests, their faces pale with shock. I waved off help until the elderly woman was stabilized, her son squeezing my hand in gratitude. "You saved her," he whispered. My arm needed stitches, the bullet having left a clean but painful graze. Dad approached, his face ashen, Isabella clinging to his arm, her gown crumpled. "Olivia, you're bleeding," he said, his voice cracking with something I hadn't heard before. Fear, maybe, or awe. It's minor, I replied, wincing as a paramedic bandaged me. Are you both okay? He nodded, words failing him, his eyes fixed on the blood soaking my dress. A detective pulled me aside, notebook in hand. You stopped a bloodbath, he said, his tone matter of fact. These guys hit 4 high-end events this year. Jewelry heists, no witnesses left. They had a pipe bomb in a delivery van out back, disarmed by our squad thanks to your tip. Your instincts saved lives. I downplayed it, my voice steady despite the adrenaline crash. I just did my job. By morning, the story was everywhere. A wildfire spreading across news channels and social media. My phone buzzed with texts from Ethan, Mom, and my Apex boss, Lauren Vega. Ethan's message was all caps. Liv, you're a legend. Call me. Mom's voicemail was tearful. I saw the news, honey. I'm so proud but so worried. Please call me. Lauren's was brief but warm. You're a credit to Apex, Olivia. We're proud. Check in when you're ready. I turned on the hotel TV to find CNN running the story. Hero security operative foils wedding heist and bomb threat at Monterey Estate. Grainy security footage showed me disarming Scarface, then rescuing the hostage, interspersed with clips of a police chief praising my textbook bravery under pressure. Guests described me in odd tones. She moved like something out of an action movie, one said. Saved us all, including that poor server. The bomb squad confirmed a pipe bomb in a van near the back gate, disarmed before it could detonate. I cringed at the attention, my arm throbbing as I changed the bandage, the hotel room feeling suddenly claustrophobic. I attended a post-wedding brunch to meet detectives, my arm bandaged under a black blazer I'd packed as a backup outfit. The mood was somber, guests picking at croissants and fruit platters while whispering about the robbery. Isabella spotted me first, rushing over with a hug that caught me off guard. Olivia, we owe you everything, she said, tears in her eyes. You saved us. Dad was quieter, his usual confidence muted, his suit jacket rumpled from the chaos. The police said you risked your life, he said, his voice low. I met his gaze, unflinching. It's my job, Dad, even if it's just security. The words echoed his dismissive introductions, and he flinched, his eyes dropping to the floor. The TV in the corner blared, replaying the footage. My Apex headshot, clips of my takedown, and an interview with Lauren, who called me a rising star in the industry. Guests gasped as the screen showed me freeing the hostage, my movements precise despite the blood on my arm. Dad's coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile, the sound echoing in the hushed room. His face held a complex mix of shock, shame, and something new. Pride, maybe, or the beginning of it. Later, in a quiet cliffside lounge overlooking the Pacific, we talked. Dad sat across from me, his usual polish replaced by a raw vulnerability. I was wrong, Olivia, he admitted, staring at the ocean, his voice rough. I didn't understand your work. I thought it was less, beneath you. I didn't soften the truth, my voice steady but firm. You never asked, Dad. You decided my career wasn't enough, introduced me as a failure to your friends, made me feel small every chance you got. He winced, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I saw you as my mistake, not my daughter. Yesterday you were extraordinary. I don't know how to make that right. I took a breath, the weight of years between us heavy in the air. Start by seeing me, Dad. Not your version of me, but who I am. I've been this person all along. Dedicated, skilled, protecting people. You just never looked. He nodded, his eyes glistening in a way I'd never seen. I always thought I knew what was best for you. Stanford law, a life like mine. I thought security was a step down, something temporary. I didn't realize. He trailed off, searching for words. I didn't realize you were protecting people like me, people I care about. I saw that gun to my head, and then you were there, taking control when everyone else froze. I softened slightly, but not entirely. I didn't do it for you, Dad. I did it because it's who I am. But I'm glad you're starting to see that. He reached for his club soda, then stopped, his hand trembling slightly. I owe you an apology, Olivia. Not just for yesterday, but for years of dismissing you. I want to know my daughter. The real one. It was a start, but years of hurt couldn't be erased in one conversation. It'll take time, I said, but I'm open to trying. In the weeks that followed, my life transformed in ways I hadn't anticipated. The footage went viral, sparking a media frenzy I mostly dodged, declining interview requests from CNN and local stations. Apex promoted me to Director of Tactical Operations, tasking me with training new recruits and developing protocols for high-risk events. I mentored a young operative, Mia Torres, who reminded me of my younger self, determined, underestimated, eager to prove herself. We spent late nights at the Apex training facility, running drills and swapping stories, her ambition reigniting my own passion for the work. I reconnected with a former Navy comrade, Javier Ruiz, who'd seen the news and called to congratulate me. Our conversation a reminder of the bonds forged in service. The police awarded me a civic bravery commendation, presented at a ceremony in Monterey where Mom and, to my surprise, Dad sat in the front row. Mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "I always knew you were a force, Liv." Dad's presence was quieter, but he clapped longer than anyone, his eyes meeting mine with a nod that felt like a promise. Industry journals ran profiles on me, and I spoke at security conferences across the country, sharing insights on threat detection and crisis response. My inbox overflowed with client inquiries, from tech startups to international NGOs, all wanting Apex's hero operative on their team. I leaned on therapy to unpack the years of self-doubt I'd carried, my father's dismissal having left scars I hadn't fully acknowledged. Through those sessions, I began to embrace my path, not as a reaction to his judgment, but as a choice that aligned with my core. Dad made efforts, tentative at first, then more genuine. He visited my Oakland loft, a far cry from his Los Altos Hills mansion, and asked real questions about my work. How I trained, what drove me, the stakes of my operations. He listened, really listened for the first time. He attended an Apex training demo, watching me lead a tactical drill with a mix of awe and regret. When a security magazine named me to their Top 40 Under 40, he framed the article, hanging it beside his own awards in his office, a gesture that felt like a bridge between our worlds. 6 months later, he hosted a fundraiser for first responders, inviting me to speak. Standing at the podium, I looked out at a room of strangers and saw Dad in the front row, his face lit with a pride I'd never seen before. I spoke about security as empowerment, creating spaces where people can thrive without fear. Physically, emotionally, authentically. "It's not just about protection," I said, my eyes catching Dad's. "It's about giving people the freedom to be who they are." His nod was small but heavy, a silent acknowledgement that he was finally seeing me. Our relationship isn't perfect, but it's honest now, built on mutual respect rather than expectation. I've learned that true security comes from living authentically, not chasing others' approval. Therapy helped me shed the weight of Dad's dismissal, and I've grown to fully embrace my path as a protector, not because it defines me, but because it's the life I chose. A year after the wedding, Isabella called, her voice warm in a way it hadn't been before. She and Dad were hosting another event, this time a gala for veterans' mental health, and they wanted me to speak. "Charles talks about you constantly now," she said, a smile in her voice. "It's quite sweet." At the gala, I shared my story, not just the robbery, but the journey to self-acceptance, the power of standing firm in your truth. Dad's eyes met mine as I spoke, and the look of understanding between us was worth more than any headline or award. Have you ever been underestimated, only to prove your worth when it mattered most? Or faced a moment that rewrote a broken relationship, turning dismissal into respect? Share your story in the comments below. Subscribe and share if this resonated with you. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing, without a shred of doubt, that you're exactly where you're meant to be.